My name is Dave, and I'm solving the mystery of game design one small project at a time. I've just about cracked the case, but there's a few more challenges to overcome before I make a game that'll pay my rent. And that fact makes me want to punch someone in the face. Many years ago, I had an indie dev give me a tip. Making whatever strange idea pops into your head without outlining a plan first, or doodling, never results in a fully fleshed out game. So naturally, I've decided to completely ignore his advice and do just that. Keep in mind, what you're about to see is a more organized version of what I did. As I workshopped my idea, I ended up having to make some additional elements that I didn't initially know it needed. So while everything is arranged in the order I probably should have done them in, what actually happened was closer to... Alright, I'm going in! While I was finishing up my previous project, I began thinking about what Luigi's Mansion, one of my favorite games, would play like if it was an arcade game. As a result, a blurry image of a pumpkin man trapping a ghost inside a lantern appeared in my head. So I began by drawing him. I had just started getting really into mystery shows like Castle and Father Brown at the time, so that heavily influenced his design. What I ended up with was a cute little pumpkin detective. His goal would be to clear various haunted mansions of ghosts by trapping them in his trusty lantern. His name is Spook, and I am very proud of him. His hat would end up becoming a living nightmare to animate at different angles, but I'm far too attached to it to let it go now. Next, I decided on a secondary tool to complement the lantern. In line with my detective theme, I gave him a revolver that fires rounds of concentrated sunlight to ward off ghosts. I call it Sunny. It was originally more like a power-up. It could only hold one round at a time and had a nasty kickback. During this initial period, I would go for walks and let my brain go crazy with different ideas surrounding the game. I kept having these beautiful visions of it as an action-adventure game with frantic, fast-paced gunfights, fantastical set pieces, and a simple but heartfelt story. For a while, I told myself to save these ideas for a sequel, but I ended up gradually shifting towards this bigger, better game. Some might call this scope creep, but I didn't see it that way. To me, it felt more like experimenting with different ideas before beginning actual development. After a total of 5 months, I had a partial build made, and it didn't feel great to play. The idea itself didn't seem bad, but the way I had it set up just wasn't fun. That, combined with being unable to figure out what I was doing wrong, completely burned me out. It took me a week of stress playing Yoshi's Island to recover. And playing such a classic not only helped me feel better, but gave me some ideas for how to make the core gameplay more fun and satisfying. I guess I just needed a recharge. With renewed vigor, I decided on 2 things. 1, to take my time and continue experimenting, and 2, to take a breather for a few days if a game mechanic, effect, or even an entire build didn't work out. So, back to the drawing board. The first order of business was to give the lantern a larger vortex to account for the more action-oriented gameplay. Oh, goody goody gumdrops. I get to figure out how to animate this! It was about as agonizingly painful as you think it was, but well worth the effort. Next up was to upgrade Sunny. I took away the kickback, for now, and made it able to be fired indefinitely. And since I've always appreciated the ability to manually sheath your sword in the 3D Zelda titles, I added a holster button for when the dust settles. Now we need some ghosts to bust. We also need a better name for them. No one's gonna complain if I just call them ghosts, but I like it when enemies are named something other than just enemies. So I dubbed them Spectres. Evil spirits who terrorize the living and the dead. The first round I created were from the arcade build, and I ended up scrapping them. But I kept their sprites and was able to reuse some of their designs. One struggle I ran into was making them tough enough to actually feel like a threat to the player. With a melee weapon, there's always some degree of risk when fighting because you're required to get close to your opponent. But since we're using a ranged weapon, that risk goes away. Unless we give the Spectres a few ways to work around it. The first thing I did was give them more HP. This will give them time to actually attack. I don't normally like it when enemies are damage sponges, but I think allowing them to take a little more punishment will be okay since Sunny has a pretty good firing rate. Next up was movement. I gave the Spectres ways to force the player to move or interfere with his aiming. For example, the Doppy can melt down to a puddle to evade incoming fire, while the Spinner bounces off the walls and ceiling. The Booligan moves left and right. He's gun fodder. Lastly, I decided to give Doppy and Spinner some firepower of their own. This really helped make fighting them more exciting. I even found myself dying a few times. Might need to tone them down a bit so they don't rise up and destroy their creator. The funny thing is, the way Spectres are fought hasn't changed much from the arcade build. But I took my time and figured out how to make the process of stunning and capturing them feel like an accomplishment. I still had to worry about level structure though. If you're one of the 7 people that watch my videos, you'll know that level design isn't my strong suit. Fortunately, salvation came in the form of a bear and bird. I love Banjo-Kazooie. It's my favorite 3D platformer of all time, and my recent playthrough of it helped me decide how I wanted my levels to play out. The player will explore various areas and landmarks. After he overcomes the puzzles or challenges within, he'll be rewarded with a clue. Once enough have been collected, the identity of the level's crime boss will be revealed, and his lair will open. I thought it would be fun to have each clue look unique and relate to what the crime boss is up to. In my mind, this will help players roleplay as a detective a bit more, make them feel like they're investigating and figuring out who done it. Okay, no more putting it off. Time to build a level. Or part of one at least. Still not great at level design, and using maps like I did in my previous projects was driving me crazy. So I tried something else. I wrote down a series of challenges and puzzles as if I was writing a walkthrough for someone. I picked one of the challenges I concocted and got to work, pixeling the necessary sprites and programming some obstacles. The walkthrough, I wrote, provided me with a proper direction and goal without weighing me down. I also liked it a lot more than map making. I'm not saying it's a better or even faster way of designing levels, it just worked better for me. The challenge I picked required a town for reasons you'll see later. I've got some experience doing that and am not too shabby at it if I do say so myself. And I got a great idea for one while building random crap in Minecraft. Since good ghosts need a place to live too, I wanted the town to be a mix of spooky but also calming. I started with the buildings and created a structure that resembled a giant lantern. My original designs were a bit too straight and realistic, so I curved the sides of the buildings to make them look a bit strange. With that done, I really wanted to come up with a proper set of steps for designing the surrounding environment. It stinks to work for hours on multiple sprites and tile sets only to find that they don't work well together. So I used what I have dubbed the portrait method. Basically, it comes down to creating each sprite one at a time, placing it in a small camera view sized room, and seeing how it looks in game before moving on to the next sprite. For example, after designing one of the houses, I placed it into the room. Then I created some ground tiles and set them underneath. Okay, now some fence to surround the town. Maybe some street lamps? Trees? Sky? Stars? Perfect. A picture fit for it looks good. Designing it this way allowed me to see what adjustments needed to be made and what other structures the town needed. And because I knew that this little patch of heaven looked good, I was able to cobble the rest of the town together knowing it would too. Now for the demonstration. There's a bit more to see afterwards, so stay tuned. And as always, I'll put a timestamp on the screen in case you want to skip the gameplay. But please don't. I did have some mechanics, enemy designs, and more that ended up having to be reworked or scrapped. But I think that's normal. It's kind of like cooking. You can make something edible, but you may need to alter the recipe if the taste test doesn't go well. So, did I prove that doodling can result in a fully fleshed out game? Not really, no. But I think I did prove that it can help you create one. When that indie dev first gave me that piece of advice years back, I took it as law. And I felt creatively stuck for a long time because I wasn't allowing myself to let loose. So if there's a moral to this story, it's to take tips from other devs with a grain of salt. Except mine. My advice is the best, and you shouldn't question it. I'll continue experimenting with my idea now that it has proper form and direction. In the meantime, here's a little something extra for the road.